The show goes on. This is the official show on the Fish on First podcast channel with me, Ely Sussman, the founder of Fish on First. We're trying to do these reaction pods after every single Marlins postseason game. And this is the first one, and it may be this like second to last one, because the Marlins dropped game one of the wild card series against the Phillies by a final score of 4-1. It's me, it's Kevin Barral, it's Alex Carver, and from Citizens Bank Park, it is Isaac Azout as well. So he got his first playoff game coverage under his belt with this one. A game that I guess in some ways wasn't all that surprising. You know, it had some themes that we've seen from the Marlins this year. It was a relatively close game. It was a kind of a difficult game to watch from their offense, especially early on. But Mr. Isaac, if you were there for us, my question to you is, what is the moment in this game that you felt it got away? The moment where you kind of accepted that it was likely going to be a loss?
You know, with the way Wheeler was pitching, make sure you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Excellent. With the way Wheeler was pitching, you'd think that once it became 3-0, it was out of hand. But I'm going to say that this game, the dagger was that 2-out, I think it was a 1-out RBI double by Alec Bohm at the bottom of the 8th inning that scored Harper. He ran right through a stop sign. And I think at that moment on, they blundered a couple of opportunities there against Alvarado. They had a shot with Ely Sussman at the plate. They had an opportunity in the 6th, I want to say, and they just couldn't get it done. And once Bohm drove in another one to make it a 3-run game, that was pretty much it. You had a glimmer of hope once Bell led off that 9th inning with a double, but then, Craig Kimbrell's been doing this for a long time in the biggest stages in the world, and he got it done 2-3 right after that. And winner go home time starting tomorrow night.
To correct the record on that, it was Castellanos that had that double.
Castellanos,
yes.
Castellanos. Bohm had the RBI double in the 3rd for the first run of the game. Castellanos, a big RBI double in the bottom of the 8th, and that was the dagger.
Yeah, I can throw up this box score for people that are watching on YouTube, but this is also available, of course, on our podcast feed. If you are watching on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe to us here. Stay tuned for all the other post-game reaction pods that we'll have. We'll have at least one more, but starting with this one right here. As you see here, every single Phillies starter had at least one hit in this game. The game started by Jesus Luzardo and 4 different Marlins relievers in relief of him that went 1 inning apiece. But Alex has followed Luzardo's career from a very early moment in this one. Luzardo had a little postseason experience with the A's, but this was obviously his Marlins postseason debut. Only 4 innings in this one, got worked up to 90 pitches in those 4 innings, allowed 8 hits, but no walks, 5 strikeouts. Overall, what did you see with Luzardo in this one?
Yeah, he was challenging tonight. A lot of fastball, a lot of slider, and literally almost no third pitch changeup. So he was challenging. He was comfortable going right after these hitters. But as you saw, I think he worked some deep counts, and I think overall, just the lack of a third pitch really hurt him here. Wasn't really mixing as well as he can. I really don't think the changeup was present at all, and if it was, he wasn't using it. So it was 2 pitches tonight. He did have his velo, especially early on. I think he did the job. He didn't walk anybody, but did give up a lot of hits, but he did manage it okay. Just in terms of limiting damage. But overall, just a little bit of a mixed bag for Luzardo tonight. Just not having that third pitch, I think, hurts him. But he was challenging. That was probably the MO from the start. I mean, I don't know, maybe whoever Isaac or Noah on exactly what his plan was tonight, but he was definitely well within the zone a lot of the night, especially with the fastball. Also tried to challenge a bit with the slider, kind of delve a bit inside with the slider at times, but literally no changeup, almost no changeup, not literally, but almost no changeup. So, I think this guy really, really challenged with fastball tonight. He was coming right after these guys. He wasn't really intimidated, which is great to see. And I think he did his job overall. And then the bullpen was pretty good behind him, I would say. Bullpen only gave up like 1 run, right? So I think the bullpen was pretty good behind him. I think that this game could just come down to a lack of offense. Some big moments wasted, like Isaac alluded to, with Gurriel, a couple moments from Jazz. But they were facing some good pitchers, and this is what happens in the playoffs. When you face good pitching, you face good teams. This is kind of what happens.
Right. This is a graphic I isolated from Baseball Savant of Luzardo's sliders. As you mentioned, a lot of them down and in to right-handed batters that he was facing. And he faced some of their lefties as well, so down and away towards them. He threw 10 balls in the dirt in this game, most of those being sliders. So even though no walks, it just got him into some bad counts. It worked up that pitch count, so they had to go to the pen early. And then eventually they get to a reliever in Okert, who guys right before him, it was A.J. Puck. And then it was George Soriano, George Soriano, his postseason debut. That one fine. After him, it was an inning of, who was that? In the 7th inning, that was Brazoban. And then in the 8th inning with Okert, allowing that one run in there. We should probably get to the Ely situation. He obviously did not start this game, but he came off the bench for that pinch hitting appearance when the Marlins finally wore down Zach Wheeler. They go to the pen, Philly does, for Jose Alvarado, and they bring in Ely to pinch hit for Jesus Sanchez with the potential tying runs on base in that 7th inning. Just take me through what you were thinking there, Kevin, and whether you agreed or disagreed with that.
You kind of look back at Ely versus Alvarado, just career wise, and it made sense. He's 1 for 3, and that one time was an RBI, and I believe that was actually in the playoffs, if I'm correct. Yeah, 1 for 1 in the playoffs, and that was the RBI. So it made sense at the time. Was a little surprised I didn't want to go Jesus Sanchez. I don't know exactly what those career numbers look like right now, but definitely some that, Sanchez for the most part has had a lot more success in Gurriel just all season. He's been in big moments as well. But Miami signed Ely for this exact moment to come in clutch in the playoffs. He's someone who's been in this position many times before. So I don't know if Skip was asked about it. Actually, he wasn't in postgame. And he decided to go with Gurriel there. I can't say I don't disagree, because he was signed for this moment. But man, you can't only look back at Gurriel. Soler had a great moment there, I believe, with Bell on third. Soler, we don't talk about it. I know we were talking about it on the stream, how good Jorge Soler is, but man, going 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, not being able to get anything going offensively there, just a really bad night for him. And I know we had the Jazz Chisholm bunt situation there where he tried to go for a bunt with 2 outs in the inning. Another situation I don't totally agree with, but aside from that, just a tough night overall offensively. And we could look at the Gurriel moment, because that was probably the best moment they had. But man, you could look at other moments in the night where you're like, kind of wish they, it was. And I think all of us here would agree, it was such a frustrating night to watch offensively, because for the most part, Luzardo kind of kept you in this. You only give up 3, and it was very early on, so Miami still had time. And then aside from that, just like, the bullpen pitched extremely well. Very surprised Skip went with so many guys, I will say. I was thinking maybe he would have gone Soriano multiple innings, and maybe Pucky would have gone with 1 more inning just to kind of conserve your arms, especially if Miami does miraculously now advance to the NLDS. But yeah, just a tough night overall. And then that Ely one kind of just was the cherry on the top of like, yeah, maybe Miami isn't going to make this comeback.
Yeah, when it comes to Ely Gurriel, Alvarado is as nasty as they come when it comes to left-handed relievers, and he brought his best stuff in that at bat. And if you think about it, the nasty pitches that he got swing and misses from Ely Gurriel, could you imagine Jesus Sanchez in that at bat? He wasn't going to get anything done either, especially in his most recent at bats against same side pitching for Sanchi. He has not looked good. You can't argue with that move whatsoever. I thought an interesting idea would have been to maybe pinch run Arise there, but if he were the tying run, then you definitely pinch run for him. But like you said, Kevin, they not only do they use a lot of arms, they use a lot of bats as well. They put in Wendell at short, they use Hampson, just because of that Ely Gurriel decision. So it was definitely a frustrating game, like you said.
And then obviously, and just looking at Sanchez versus Alvarado, 4 for 1. The one time was an RBI, so not very different from Ely. So yeah, I think just 1 more at bat. But yeah, just a tough night. And I think this is something someone's going to ask Skip tomorrow, just why so many relievers? Soriano has proven that he could give you multiple innings. I understand it's the playoffs, but at that point, and I know it's a 3-1 game, you still have a decent shot, but at least 1 more inning would have kind of helped out. You don't have to use Okert there. I know they were going to use Nardi if they were down by 1 or tied, but It was just a rough night for Miami, and they played well. I mean, they pitched well really well.
Yeah,
Aside
yeah.
from Luzardo, but just the offense really didn't come through in the ballpark where they've had success for the most part this year.
I think Skip handled the bullpen actually really well. I agree with you on Okert. That was maybe an iffy decision, but I don't think you manage in the postseason based on trying to keep your arms fresh, especially in this win or go home situation, this best of 3 series. Soriano, if he goes back out there, who knows what happens? If Puck goes out and gives you more than 3 outs, who knows what happens? I think that was the right way to manage that situation. Even going with Okert there, he had a bunch of lefties lined up for him. I think that was also the right move. It's just, you're not going to win when you score 1 run. And if you had 3 or 4 runs, you don't even go to Okert there. So I do think this game was properly managed by Skip Schumacher in his first career postseason game.
It was
another moment to point out.
Go ahead, Carver.
No, I was just going to say another moment to point out that really made a difference. You guys were talking about the offense struggling. Another moment to really point out was this 9th inning where you have Jazz Chisholm with a runner in scoring position. What is that? Bell with a double, right? You have Jazz Chisholm with a runner in scoring position. He works a 2-0 count, gets his fastball right there, right over the plate, and he put a horrible swing on that ball. I understand that it's a tough pitcher to face, but he gets a 96, 97 mile per hour fastball in that location. You have to hit the baseball. That's going to get your team back in the game. That's going to plate at least one more run if you put the bat on the ball. And he didn't do it, and he popped out very, very weakly to the second baseman on the infield, which was a very bad look for Jazz. I also thought, this strike zone, I would say I'm not going to make excuses because I don't do that, but this strike zone was tough all night, especially on the lower half. It was a very big zone on the lower half. A lot of inconsistencies there with the umpire, but again, not making excuses. He was not happy in his previous at-bat, and I think that kind of permeated into his next at-bat where he had that very, very weak fly out to second base. So if this is a star player, that Miami hopes him to be, that's a big moment for him. He worked an advantageous count, and he put a horrible swing on that baseball. And that was a good time for Miami to try to get some momentum. They didn't do it because of a bad swing. So it's not all on Jazz. There's obviously other factors that go into play here. But those couple of big moments, especially that one in the 9th inning, kind of hurt right now.
Yeah, I just got a notification. I have notifications on for Jazz's Instagram stories, and he just added to his story. I wonder what that was from. That's probably from him making the outfield assist to home plate to get a runner there on what was an RBI single. He saved a run with a good throw home. That was kind of one of the only highlights for the Marlins is actually that great throw that he made, a one-hop throw back in the 4th inning to get Castellanos at home. So that's kind of a joke with Jazz. He'll always recognize, he always appreciates people sharing highlights of his feats out there. But it was a really bad day at the plate anyway. You look at it from scoring around to bunt back in his 2nd plate appearance, even though there was already 2 outs in the inning, to right as you highlighted, just not putting a good swing on the ball for somebody that has one of the sweetest swings and just somebody that should be capable when a ball is in the zone of doing damage against it.
And just again, Jorge Soler, I mean, for someone who you really needed him this season, not this season, tonight. You had him in a big moment, just couldn't come through. And I'm trying to find out the last time he struck out 3 times in a game. Shouldn't have been too long ago. It was against September 23rd against the Brewers. So, yeah, you don't see that too much from Soler, I guess. But I guess the other thing we could also mention is the 0-2 count. Miami really fell behind the count a lot tonight. Just that's the biggest thing I've noticed. The ESPN broadcast noticed it. Just a lot of 0-2 counts. I mean, Soler, the second, I think it was the 3rd strikeout or 2nd one. He was ahead of the count, 2-0, and he ended up swinging at the next 3 pitches or something like that, and he struck out. I don't know, just felt frustrating. And, a lot of props to Zach Wheeler, man. He pitched a great game. I mean, I believe, he goes 6 2/3, 5 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, doesn't walk a single batter. That was impressive too.
We were saying in the chat as it was going on that it felt like he would pitch a complete game. Like it really felt like that at certain moments. So it was kind of a victory for the team in that 7th inning to get him out. And in that 7th inning to get their 1 run, they needed 2 infield hits to do it. Like they had the Jake Berger infield hit that just went to the right spot, kind of a mess up by the Phillies on that one. And then DLC drives in the only run on a ball that because Alec Boehm had to leave his feet to get it, the throw didn't have enough in time. But aside from that, yeah, Wheeler probably would have gone out for the 8th inning at the very least.
Yep.
So a couple other things to touch on. Luis Arraez started this game as expected. He played the complete game. We touched on very briefly the possibility of pinch running for him when it was 3-1 and he was on first base, but he ends up staying in the entire game. It's the first complete game that he has played from start to finish since hurting his ankle originally over 2 weeks ago. We could see from him running, he's not anywhere close to 100%. It is better than nothing, though, to have him in there and at top of the lineup. And Josh Bell, I don't think we really hammered it home that he was by far, he had the best quality contact
Amazing
of all the Marlins
game.
hitters.
Yeah.
He was the first one. It took until the 7th inning for them to get a runner in scoring position on his first double. And then his second double in the 9th inning against Kimbrel, it would have been a home run at Lone Depot. It just wasn't high enough in Citizens Bank to get over the wall, but he absolutely crushed that one to the wall as well. But without further ado, I think we'll just look ahead to game 2 now. They do still get another game. As deflating as this feels, there is plenty of precedent, even in the short history of this wild card series, of teams coming back from down 1-0 to win it. So let me see the probable starters, as we're already familiar with: Braxton Garrett for the Marlins and Aaron Nola for the Phillies. And earlier, we're recording this, of course, on Tuesday night. Early in the day, Noah and Isaac both talked to Braxton in the pregame press conference, and I liked his responses to Noah. So I'll just play this exchange from Braxton as he prepares for his first career postseason start.
Coming from where you started the season in the bullpen and moving into a starter's role, how much has it meant to you that the organization's put so much trust in you that you're starting game 2 of a playoff series?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. This is what I've dreamed of since I was a kid. You know, it's crazy being here, like, no doubt. But yeah, I've just worked incredibly hard, and as I mentioned, I made that arm slot change a couple years ago, and I feel like I really took off from there and kind of just built more and more confidence as each season went on. And yeah, of course, it means a lot. I had, one of my best years this year, and I plan to continue to refine and make everything better and keep getting better.
And also, is there anybody that you went to for advice before this series, and are you going to have any family here for the game tomorrow?
I'm going to have my parents and my little sisters. But yeah, I've gone to a few of the older guys, Matt Barnes, David Robertson, guys like that who have been here. The pitch com's new. There's been a few questions about that and how loud it's going to be, so we're just not quite used to that, but I'm sure it won't be a problem.
It kind of was. It was very loud.
Right. That we didn't really hammer that home as well. It's nothing new. This ballpark has a reputation ever since that. I guess you could go back 15 years. Those Phillies teams that last won a World Series, that the atmosphere is great. And we saw it on full display just last year when the Phillies made it to the World Series, that it seems to create a pretty strong home field advantage here. Mr. Carver, what are our expectations of Braxton in this one? Overall, he's been the most consistent guy on this rotation all year long, but his stuff is a little different than Luzardo's. He's not going to get as many whiffs. He's going to be a little bit more efficient, but he hasn't been here before. Well, he has actually been here before. He's on the 2022 wildcard roster, but this is certainly his first start, a new responsibility for him. What are your expectations after seeing what the Phillies did in game 1?
Sure. So for Braxton, man, it's like he said, just a pleasure to see him in this spot. Like it really is cool to me because me and you were covering this guy when he was nowhere near where he is today, which is definitely really cool to see. Whether it's an arm slot change or just the full realization of fastball command is definitely what I think is the difference for him. Maybe that has to do with the arm slot change that he mentioned to Noah right there. But man, it's just super cool to see this guy be the best pitcher that the Marlins have had. Maybe not the best, but definitely the most consistent pitcher that the Marlins have had all year. Between him and Luzardo, it's one of those two. They've been the most consistent arms this team has had all year, and to see him be one of those two guys is definitely really, really cool. Because we were talking about a time where this guy could be off the team because we don't know if the prospect pedigree is really true. So to see that come to fruition for Braxton and see him starting a playoff game is super cool. Outlook for this game, the Phillies got a lot of lefties. This is a left-handed arm. I still believe in this guy's curveball. He's got one of the better curveballs in the Marlins organization, always has while he was coming up. If he can command the changeup, that's going to be the difference. And then if the fastball command is what it has been most of this year, I think he's going to be fine. This is a left-handed heavy lineup. They're going to have their bats in there, so it's going to be a challenge for Braxton. But I definitely think he's up to it if his stuff is there. That's kind of been the question mark, though, around him is like start to start. Like, yeah, it can kind of be there some starts, and usually it is. But sometimes it's all the way there, and then he's a whole different animal. So it's just going to be the consistency of the stuff, consistency of the command when it comes to all three of his pitches. That really makes the difference for Braxton. But, man, I really think that this guy definitely has earned this spot, and I'm excited to see him in it. And I know Jamie's excited to see him in it. It's her favorite player. She's wearing her Braxton jersey to work tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm excited to see Braxton here. And it's really, really refreshing to see this guy take the turnaround that he did. And I hope he does well tomorrow.
Kind of helps that he doesn't walk too many guys. Just Philly's lineup is very, I guess, aggressive. Kind of saw that in the third inning of tonight's game, obviously, but almost all the guys strike out over 25%, and they don't walk too much. So that kind of helps. I am interested in seeing if Braxton will use the cutter as one of more of his primary pitches. I know it's been his third most used pitch this year, but it's kind of on and off for him at points throughout the year. So I'm interested to see if that's a pitch he will implement in the playoffs. Not that he will implement, he will, but just how much he will rely on that pitch. He has at points this season, and those usually tend to be some of his better starts. So I'm interested to see, from that aspect. And then obviously you have Aaron Nola, who we kind of touched up on the stream. This guy kind of takes our good buddy Alex Carr kind of told us that he kind of goes, takes a new level when he gets to the playoffs. In his career, he has almost a 5 ERA, as I'm kind of looking at here right now. So we'll see what happens with him. He's a great pitcher no matter what. Skip kind of mentioned that they're going to face a really good pitcher tomorrow. But, I mean, if there's a winnable game for Miami and you literally need to win, it's tomorrow's. I do think Miami could get to Nola.
Yeah. The big factor is in this first game not using his biggest guns out of the bullpen. And you could debate whether or not that was the right move one way or another. That ultimately wouldn't have mattered because the offense didn't show up. To have David Robertson and Andrew Nardi and most importantly Tanner Scott, all of them very well rested. All of them will be on 3 days rest since they last appeared. You'd think that any one of them could go more than one inning if the right matchups are there. And obviously really they should be there no matter what. Even if the team is losing, you think if it's the same score this time around, if it's the same situation, they're down a couple runs in the middle innings, that's when I would expect and hope that Skip just goes to those guys, because this is it. They can rest as much as they like during the offseason. And you gotta play down with the best guys and do whatever small things you could do on the margins to put the hitters in position to have more production than they did against Wheeler.
It's so awesome watching these postseason games because we're having conversations like these where your back is literally against the wall. And I'm just curious, let's say if the game is similar to like tonight and Braxton can go too deep, because obviously he's not someone that goes 7-8 innings often. At what point do you go with your big three of Nardi, Robertson, and Scott? If you're down 3-0 in the fourth inning, you got to take Brax out. Do you go to Nardi immediately? It's going to be very interesting to see how the rookie manager manages his bullpen there, because obviously there's no tomorrow. So I'm very interested to see how this goes. Hopefully Brax does give them length and they're able to bridge out the next few innings to get to that three-headed monster in the late innings. But I'm very curious to see, because I don't pay attention to those things when watching other postseason games in years past. But, with this, a really good bullpen, I'm curious to see how it's managed. Maybe Nardi goes 2 innings, and same with Scott. You use your best guys to finish it off. Who knows? Maybe I don't think you'll use Cabrera, because he is the only guy that could possibly go on Wednesday should they advance. On Thursday, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You kind of hope that Braxton gives you 6, as you mentioned, Isaac. So you go with that big 3. Go Robertson 7, Nardi 8, Scott 9. And not only that, you just kind of hope that the offense gives you multiple runs. And that's the big thing for me. I mean, this offense just in a pitcher-friendly ball, in a hitter-friendly ballpark, just wasn't able to do anything at all. And that was where it was very frustrating. But you just hope that Braxton gives you a really good start. And just kind of looking at Nola against Miami in his career, 3.58 ERA, 5.10 record. That doesn't really matter. 143 innings pitched. Has a 1.067 WHIP. So we'll see. Miami's gone to no at times, and hopefully they'll do it tomorrow when their backs are literally against the wall.
Yeah, and I know they didn't look good offensively today, but I would put more of that on Wheeler than Miami's at bats. It's just hard to have good at bats when you're behind in the count 0-2, and it's hard to get balls in the count when he's not throwing balls. He's throwing the ball over the plate every single time. He only got to a 3-ball count 3 times all game long. Yeah. So they just got completely dominated, and it happens even to the good lineups like Atlanta. It does happen. It just happens less often to those really talented lineups. But Zach Wheeler completely pitched his A game tonight, and unfortunately Miami couldn't get it done. The best thing in the world was them taking him out of the game. And that 7th inning, and like you said, we brought in Alvarado, and boy, that guy is just filthy. And I think he's easily the best reliever that Philadelphia has. I'm not too afraid of Kimbrel or Sir Anthony Dominguez or Hoffman. I don't think they have a great bullpen. So Alvarado's their man, and they burned him for what I think it was 3 outs in total that they used him for in tonight's ball game. So we'll see who Thompson goes with tomorrow.
Yeah, and obviously no excuse, but. Man, the umpire tonight was not very good.
Horrible. That's horrible.
He got off to a fairly good start. I was watching with my dad. I'm like, man, he's kind of calling those close strikes. He's calling those balls, and then kind of later into the game, when the game started developing, you kind of notice like, man, this guy sucks. So a couple missed check swings on both sides. Obviously, you got to look at it on both ends, and there's one of them. I believe this was called. Yeah, that was the. That was the ball. That should have been a ball. That kind of like touched whatever. Anyways, kind of just hope that and just got to get it going.
Yeah.
Got to get it going back against the wall.
As bad as this umpire was, he really was bad. He was just atrocious for both sides. Yeah, I think it was Luzardo who got an amazing call that was about a foot off the plate, and he got a call. I think Oker got a huge call. This umpire was just atrocious, and I think it was equally for both sides. We'll see when the umpire scorecard comes out tomorrow. But like everyone likes to say, I don't think Miami would have done anything with a different umpire because he was just as bad for both sides.
Yeah, you got to play both sides, right? Like the Marlins got calls too, right? So where was the difference really? I mean, like I said before, I think the difference was in the lower half of this zone. There was just so many calls that were off the plate that this guy made. It was just a big lower half, and everybody struggled with it. I mean, the Phillies weren't happy with it. The Marlins weren't happy with it. You saw Jazz complaining about it. They have a right to complain. This guy had a bad night. It is what it is. But to have a bad night in this situation where it's a 3-game series, it pretty much sucks. But we're going to see somebody else back there tomorrow night, and hopefully, like we said before, with Braxton and this 3-4 pitch mix he has with, slider / curveball, fastball, cutter, and then change up. Hopefully he has all 4 pitches, 3 to 4 pitches that he has. And, I think he has a good chance, especially against, like I said, a lefty-heavy lineup. I think he has a good chance. But they're also facing another tough pitcher in Nola. So, again, I think it'll be, if I'm projecting it, I think it'll be an okay night for Braxton. I think he'll do his job. But then, again, it's going to come down to the offense and what they can do for this team. Tonight it wasn't there. Hopefully tomorrow it's there because you need to have it or your season's over.
And really quick shout out to Jesus Sanchez. He had some really nice throws tonight, from the outfield. And obviously, this was something that Rob Thompson was mentioning in postgame, that he was saying, our report is that this guy has an arm and he's very accurate. And that I don't know if that was the main reason why they kept Schwarber there. That's kind of what they were saying, that, we know Sanchez has a good arm. So that's why we kept Schwarber there in the first when they put the stop sign up, and he didn't score on that sac fly very early on in the game. And I believe he got someone out at second or very close to that. I know Jazz got the one there at the outfield assist there when to get Castellanos out. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with Jesus Sanchez. Not something we talk about too often there, but good arm in the outfield, and he's been good.
The final topic I want to get out on is something that Kevin brought up before we started recording. The Marlins got the 5th seed, just barely ahead of the D-backs. It seemed for a while that it was 6th seed or bust. Instead, it's the D-backs that get the 6th seed. They go to Milwaukee, and they win game 1, starting a rookie going up against Corbin Burns on the other side, and they win that one 6-3 in game 1. So an upset brewing already over there. So the Marlins, you think, Kevin, already regret getting the 5th seed and drawing the Phillies instead of going to Milwaukee, where, as we learned even before the series started, that Brandon Woodruff was out with injury, and then seeing how Corbin Burns was really mediocre in this first game. Any regrets about the way that this shook out, facing up with the Phillies instead of a more vulnerable number 3 seed in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I mean, you kind of, especially now, Brandon Woodruff is out for the series. Milwaukee's offense is not very good. You kind of tell yourself, like, man, what if Miami was there tonight, And this is Miami had seen this team very early on, not early on, very recently for a couple times, I know, and like kind of tell yourself, and maybe the atmosphere isn't the same because, man, you were saying this, Isaac, that you couldn't hear the PA announcer announce the Marlins lineup tonight when the game was starting. So I don't know how much it changed. I obviously Noah asked this about the atmosphere, and he said that wasn't an issue, but you got to think that at some point you barely could hear yourself speak in Philly, and different atmosphere, and obviously just a worse team in Milwaukee. I don't think Milwaukee's very good, aside from their starting pitching, which obviously didn't show too much tonight. But yeah, you got to feel a little bit, you got to regret it a little bit how things played out.
Yeah, I mean, Luzardo touched on the crowd a little bit tonight and just said after the first 2 hits in the bottom of the first inning, that was as loud as it was going to get. That's what Luzardo said, and I agree with him. They were just about to erupt had they scored. But these are professionals. These guys have been in the biggest stages of, anywhere. Luzardo, too. I know he pitched in the 2019 postseason. He had to start there. Soler has obviously been in a pretty big situation, so I don't think the crowd would be a huge factor for this team. Chris, one of our friends over here, also thought that the crowd in Milwaukee would have been significantly less impactful, and I think that's a load of horse hockey. I think any postseason environment would have been tough to play in. Just, I don't think it's a factor.
You saw Tampa? Tampa barely had their stadium filled up.
Right. Tampa's the outlier. Tampa, I think it was 19,000 people, the lowest attended game.
Both AL teams probably lacked.
No, the Minnesota Twins had a crazy atmosphere there. Tampa Bay had the lowest attendance in playoff history, I believe, if I read that correctly from The Athletic this morning or this afternoon. It was 19,000 people at a playoff game. 19,000. Let me confirm this with you guys while I have you. Just confirm the number at least, because it'll be on the.
Yeah, I'm stunned. 19,704 at the Trop. I get that the Rangers aren't a super sexy visiting opponent. I understand the time of day, and I guess that sort of mildly reflects people's lack of faith in the Rays making a deep run down there, despite all their wins. They were a team that obviously stacked up a lot of those wins early in the year. Yeah. So still, that is a stunningly low number.
Yeah, so 19,704 is the lowest attended playoff game in 104 years since 1919. That was the last time there was a lower attended game.
And keep in mind, the new stadium is literally going to be right next to the old one.
Yeah, so. They screwed up with
that's for another day.
That new ballpark, right? But no, yeah, the Tampa Bay was the outlier when it comes.
There's still ambiance for a new stadium for them long term though. Like they're going to, like the first couple years of that stadium, just like the Marlins, they're going to be fine. Like 2012, the Marlins had great attendance.
No, they didn't.
I mean, it was definitely better than what they had at the old stadium. That's for sure. Right. So, in terms of Tampa, just they need that. They need that breath of fresh air. So, and they deserve it. Like they have a pretty consistently winning team, and they deserve it, and so do their fans. But to see today, I saw it today right before their game started. They were selling tickets at the last second for $7. So that's just pretty tough to see for a playoff game when your team's in the playoff right there competing, and you can't sell seats. That's a pretty tough look.
Right, and in their defense, though, it was a Tuesday afternoon, 3:00 baseball game. So, and it's a wild card game, so it's not exactly the division series yet, not the championship series. So, it's a tough game to get to if you're working or you're in school. But I agree. I don't think that would have happened in Philadelphia, Atlanta, or any of the other playoff team cities. So, yeah, it's wow. So you got to be thankful sometimes, I guess.
What would that crowd have looked like in Miami, Isaac? Similar or
I would say 22, 20, a little bit more. A little bit more. But not a lot more. It would have been the third lowest playoff attended game in 104 years.
Yeah. Agreed.
Alrighty. Yeah, that will wrap us up in a tidy 35-ish minutes. Isaac at the ballpark, Alex Carver, Kevin Barral. I am Ely Sussman. The Fish continue to fight. If you're watching on YouTube, you see this kind of silly graphic I made of Jedi Billy the Marlin taking on the Fanatic. There's an article that Alex Krutchik put on our site about that, just to bring a smile to everybody's face. We don't take this stuff all that super duper seriously. The fact that the Marlins are in the postseason itself is quite a blessing, considering what the preseason expectations were. But Isaac and Noah Berger. They'll be at the ballpark for as long as this series goes on. And we will have at least one more episode of this pod coming up the next day. So this was episode 201 of the official show, as best as I can count. And episode 202 coming up 24 hours later, recapping game 2 and hopefully looking forward to game 3 if there is one.
Yeah.
That'll do it for us here. So follow all our stuff, fishonfirst.com. Become a super subscriber right there on fishonfirst.com. That's all for us right now. Peace out. Go fish.